Welcome in, Sip&Talkers. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter what time zone you happen to be in right now. Welcome back to Sip&Talk. I just walked into the studio with this massive takeout coffee, so I'm fully caffeinated and ready to go.
I can hear that cup clinking against the table from all the way over here. You really needed that today, huh?
Oh, absolutely. But before we get into the heavy geopolitical stuff, I have a quick question for you. What is, the most awkward rejection you have ever faced in your entire life?
Oh, wow. Okay, putting me on the spot. Probably back in college, I tried to walk into this really high-end, fancy restaurant, and the security guard just completely blocked me. He literally told me my outfit didn't fit the brand spirit.
The brand spirit? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the brand spirit. It was devastating. But hey, why are you asking? Did you just get rejected by, another cosmetic clinic or something?
Very funny. No cosmetic clinic rejections today. I'm actually thinking about the biggest diplomatic news of the week.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So just imagine this. You book a super expensive first-class ticket to go see the elephants in Africa, right? You map out the entire flight route.
Sounds lovely so far.
Right. But then mid-flight, 3 of the neighbors you're flying over suddenly radio the pilot and say, you know what, actually, you can't fly over our roofs today because we don't recognize the boss of your airline.
Okay. Yeah, I'm putting my tablet down to this one because this is incredibly serious. You're talking about President Lai's blocked trip to Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is not just a polite rejection about, brand spirit. That is basically a geopolitical version of airspace bullying.
Totally. And it's wild, right? So today, we're outlining some massive core contradictions. We're getting into how invisible debt makes global airspace extremely crowded, the illusion of autocratic peace, and honestly, the sheer logical absurdity of campaigning for a job that the opposing side explicitly says does not even exist.
While simultaneously, dismantling your own security system. It's quite a list.
It is. So let's grab our coffees and jump right into this blocked flight path. So the core incident here, President Lai was supposed to travel to Eswatini, right?
Yes, for a royal celebration.
Right, a real celebration. And the flight clearances were all set. But then, literally in the final 12 hours before the plane was supposed to fly over, 3 specific nations just abruptly revoked their clearance. Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar.
Which is practically unheard of in commercial or diplomatic aviation.
I mean, exactly. It's like getting to the gate for a flight to Paris, and the airline says, sorry, your neighbor has a grudge against you, so you can't fly today.
Right. And it's important to note that the U.S., the EU, the UK, Germany, they all immediately condemned this. They called it a highly politicized abuse of international aviation. But we have to look at the trigger. Why did this happen right at that moment?
Right, because there's always a trigger.
Exactly. And the reporting indicates that there were media leaks right before the trip. These leaks suggested that the president was going to have, quote-unquote, natural interactions with about 11 different African politicians during the journey.
So, bumping into people in VIP lounges, shaking hands, that kind of informal stuff.
Right. But in Beijing's eyes, that completely crossed a massive red line. They view Africa as their core sphere of influence, so they immediately flex their leverage to shut it down.
Okay, but this is the part that fascinates me. Why did Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar just comply so instantly? I mean, Beijing doesn't share a physical border with Madagascar. They're like an ocean apart.
That is where we get into the invisible debt trap. It's all about financial leverage. If you look at the data on Africa's sovereign debt, it is incredibly revealing.
Yeah, I was looking at those numbers. Private creditors hold about 43%, right?
Correct. And multilateral institutions like the World Bank hold about 34%. But Beijing is sitting there as the largest single bilateral creditor, holding 23% of the entire continent's debt.
23%. And that isn't just regular credit card debt.
No, not at all. This debt is explicitly tied to critical sovereign resources. So we're talking about Angola's oil reserves or Guinea's bauxite. When these countries can't pay back the massive infrastructure loans, it triggers what's called a debt-to-equity swap.
Right, which sounds like boring finance jargon, but it's actually terrifying.
It really is. It basically means the external creditor gets to take over critical infrastructure. They get external control over the deep water ports, the power grids, the toll roads. They don't have to literally invade the country to control its sovereignty.
They just repo the national power grid.
Basically, yeah.
So let's break down this broader playbook, because the analysis points out 5 major trends here. The first one is critical minerals. Beijing controls something like 69% of the global cobalt supply, which you need for green energy, right?
Right, exactly. They're securing the raw materials for the next century of tech. The second trend is the digital Silk Road. They are exporting this AI-in-a-box surveillance technology.
Oh, man. So they're building the 5G networks and the data centers.
Yes, and by doing that, they are creating a totally government-centric digital order in these developing nations. The host country gets cheap internet, but the architecture is fundamentally designed for surveillance.
And then the third trend is the global security initiative. So they went from just building highways and bridges to actually providing military training and border control for these nations.
Which naturally leads into the fourth trend, UN voting power. This is huge.
Right, because Africa has, 54 nations?
54 nations, yeah. And by offering them minor debt relief for zero-interest loans, Beijing essentially ensures that this massive bloc of 54 nations votes together on issues of human rights and sovereignty at the United Nations.
Okay, but wait, let me push back on this for a second. Is this purely just a malicious trap? Or are these African nations just making a completely pragmatic choice because Western institutions, like the World Bank, left a massive funding gap that nobody else was filling?
That's a really fair question. It's not cartoon villainy. It is a pragmatic choice by these nations, but the result is a soft embedding of economic coercion. It's not charity. The cost of that infrastructure is absolute diplomatic compliance.
Which brings us back to the blocked airspace. They call in the favor and the airspace gets shut down.
Exactly.
So they aren't just playing Monopoly in Africa. They are building this massive global defense wall and basically rewriting the rules of the game. But why? Why are they aggressively trying to secure these external lifelines right now?
Well, you have to look inside the country to understand the outside behavior. It's all due to a massive, intense internal pressure cooker.
The economic reality.
Precisely. They have an economic target of about 4.5 to 5% growth for 2026.
Which, if you're the U.S. or a developed European country, 5% growth sounds like a boom year.
Right. It sounds great. But for an economy that has been totally reliant on 8, 9, 10% growth for decades, dropping to 4.5% indicates a system that is on the verge of completely stalling out, especially when you factor in the crushing local municipal debt.
Okay, so the system is stalling. The analysts laid out 4 potential scenarios for Beijing's future based on all this geopolitical reporting. Let's walk through these because they are pretty intense.
They are. So scenario 1 is the digital fortress. This is the soft landing.
Right. So in this one, they hit some AI and tech breakthroughs. They managed to get 3 to 4% growth, and they establish a non-dollar economic zone, right? Like BRICS pay.
Exactly. The regime stabilizes, and any conflict with the West stays purely in the gray zone: cyber warfare, economic pressure, but no actual shooting.
Okay, scenario 2. Long stagnation. Basically the Japan-style plateau.
Yeah. The property bubbles fully burst. You have youth unemployment structurally stuck above 20%. The state survives, but innovation totally stalls out. They just don't have the capital to fund a full-scale war.
Right. They're too broke to fight. Then there's scenario 3. Internal turmoil. This is where it gets messy.
Very messy. Local municipal debt explodes. Protests escalate massively. The central government starts losing control of local provinces.
And to distract everyone, they launch small-scale military provocations, right? Unify the angry public against a foreign enemy.
That's the textbook response, yes. Which leads to scenario 4, the desperate gamble.
The nightmare scenario.
Complete economic collapse threatens the actual survival of the regime. They see their window of opportunity closing, so the leadership takes a massive political gamble and launches a catastrophic war to maintain legitimacy through pure nationalism.
Okay, wait. Let me question the logic on that 4th scenario.
Yeah.
If your house is literally on fire, why would you go punch your neighbor? Going to war when your economy is collapsing seems completely insane.
It seems insane to us, but you have to understand the concept of legitimacy transfer.
Legitimacy transfer.
Okay.
Explain that.
In an autocratic system, the unspoken deal is, we will make you wealthy, and in return, you let us rule unconditionally. But when you can no longer promise wealth when the economy is collapsing, you have to pivot.
So you shift the focus to national security.
Exactly. You pivot to extreme nationalism to stay in power. You tell the public, we aren't poor because of bad management. We are sacrificing because we are under attack by external enemies.
Wow. So the war literally becomes the only excuse to stay in power. That is terrifying.
It is.
So knowing all these high-stakes scenarios, how is Taiwan's internal political landscape reacting to this immense pressure? And real quick, before we get into this next part, I want to give a strict impartiality disclaimer to all our Sip and Talkers listening.
Yes, very important.
We are just presenting an objective review of the arguments and logical paradoxes raised in these reports regarding Taiwan's opposition party, the KMT. We are absolutely not taking a political side here. Yeah. We're just looking at the math of the arguments.
Right. And when we dissect the peace rhetoric being debated, there's a huge underlying flaw. In autocracies, peace is not decided by the collective goodwill of 1.4 billion people.
No, it isn't.
It relies entirely on the absolute unchecked willpower of one single leader.
Which makes some of the political platforms we're reading about seem completely paradoxical. Like, let me translate these KMT logical contradictions into, like, American Silicon Valley terms.
Oh, I love when you do this. Let's hear it.
Okay, so running for president over there right now under these specific frameworks is literally like campaigning endlessly, spending millions of dollars to be the CEO of OpenAI.
Okay.
But the main investor you are desperately trying to appease, the guy with all the money, puts out a public statement saying, hey, everyone, OpenAI doesn't actually exist, and there is absolutely no CEO position.
Right.
Why are you knocking on doors and running for a job that your boss explicitly says is not real?
It's a fundamental identity contradiction. You can't compromise with someone who denies your existence.
Exactly. And then there's the defense budget aspects.
Yeah.
Opposing your own defense budgets to avoid, quote-unquote, provoking Beijing. It's like running for the estate manager job at a massive mansion in Beverly Hills.
Okay, I see where this is going.
And your main campaign promise to the residents is, hey, I'm going to dismantle all our security cameras, and I'm going to cancel the perimeter insurance just so the incredibly aggressive stalker next door doesn't get offended.
And what, you hope the stalker just respects your vulnerability?
Right. Like if the neighbor breaks through the glass window, are you going to use the dinner menu from your appeasement banquet to stop a bullet?
That is a very vivid image, but it highlights the absurdity perfectly. And it brings us to the most famous paradox of all, the 1992 consensus.
Oh, the 1992 consensus. Yes.
The idea is that it's a shared framework where both sides agree there is one China, but Beijing completely dictates the actual terms of what that means today.
Yeah, agreeing to that kind of shared framework is like signing a cloud sharing agreement in Silicon Valley where only the other guy has the master password.
Right.
Your entire hard drive is set to read only, and you literally aren't allowed to back up your own data. In the tech scene, we don't call that a consensus. We call that getting hacked and then voluntarily washing the hacker's windows for them.
You're just handing over root access and calling it diplomacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy. In American terms, trying to appease someone by actively dismantling your own defenses while simultaneously claiming you're fighting for leadership is just, you're gaslighting yourself.
It really is a form of political self-gaslighting.
Which brings us to our core takeaway for today. Whether we are talking about airspace over the Indian Ocean, or municipal debt, or defense budgets, sovereignty and peace are never achieved by trying to please the entity that actively wants to eliminate you. To use one last Silicon Valley analogy, if you want to protect your patent, you do not ask the hacker for permission. You upgrade your firewall, period.
That perfectly sums it up. And just to reiterate our standard ethos here on the channel, we are not criticizing or discriminating against any country, any group, or its people.
Not at all.
We are simply providing objective facts to foster exploration. We really believe that we shouldn't simplify incredibly complex problems just out of fear. Understanding the reality of these mechanisms makes us stronger.
I couldn't agree more. All right, well, that is today's Sip and Talk. While you watch all this global drama unfold over the next few weeks, keep a clear head, look at the data, and please don't get tangled in non-existent logic.
It's an easy trap to fall into if you aren't paying attention.
Definitely. Hey, make sure you subscribe to the Sip and Talk podcast wherever you get your audio. And also, I got to enthusiastically shout out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Oh, yes, his latest video.
Have you seen his newest travel vlog?
I watched it last night.
The latest passion fruit barrel whiskey tasting he did?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It was so fun. It literally felt like I'd accidentally crashed someone else's chaotic family party. It's exactly the vibe you need after talking about global debt traps.
Highly recommend checking it out.
All right. Sip and Talkers. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.